So here's the camera, and as you can see on the screen here, I've got the feed for the camera coming through on the mobile phone, and you can see that the screen is just white. So the suggestion that I've seen on other videos on the internet is to give it a tap. Now I suspect I know the reason why this fixes it, but we'll just try it first of all on this one before we open it up, just see if it resolves the issue. So it doesn't look as though a small tap is fixing this one. What we'll do is we'll get it on the bench and open it up and we'll take a look. And you can actually unscrew these in place. You don't have to actually take the bracket off the wall. There's enough cable spare inside to twist it off. So all you need to do then is remove the two plugs from inside. And then the camera part we can take in and take a look. So you've got the option to either get us another camera, take the front off and just replace that, just the two plugs like we saw outside. And then we can just replace this camera unit with the bracket and the existing cable that's already outside, and then you don't have to bother reinstalling this part. So that's probably the easiest option. Get another camera and just replace this front unit. But we're going to have a look and see if we can repair the other board as well. Just one other thing to mention with these cameras: they do come with a little bag of silica gel. What this is, it's to absorb moisture. Any moisture that gets in the camera, it's meant to absorb that. So always remember to put that in. It's not just packing or rubbish. It is helping to keep the inside dry. So if you have one of those in there, make sure that stays in there. So here we are with the faulty camera, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it up to this. This is another base from a new camera that I had. So I've taken the front module off that, and we're going to use this to test our faulty one. So there's two screws in here holding the assembly in. We'll take those out. Two on the corners as well, so looks like actually three. So 1, 2, 3, and the two in the center. I suspect the ones on the outside here are going to hold the whole assembly in. So let's take those out. The way that the night vision works is when it detects the low light from the sensor at the front, it's just down here, it switches the camera into a different mode, and it does that via a physical relay. So when it switches over, you can actually hear the click, and the suspicion is that, especially with cold weather and an older unit, sometimes that relay can fail, and in that case it doesn't switch. It'll stay stuck in one mode or the other. Okay, so to get further into this, what we need to do is take out these hex posts. So I'm going to need a little pair of pliers to do that. So I'll go and remove these and I'll come back. So here's the unit out of the case. You can see the CCD element there, and the lens is there. It's just loose in the centre there. I think that's just got a rubber grommet on that side, so we can take that off and then remove that. So this part is the infrared illumination part. So it has the light sensor there, so that detects when it goes dark enough, and then we'll switch this array on. Now it also, I was wrong about the relay that switches over. The click must be in here, the lens. So there's no relay on the board, but the lens assembly has 2 wires going to it, and I suspect when there's power on here, either daytime or nighttime mode, that this will physically switch in perhaps another lens inside, another filter. Now if that's the case, I doubt whether the white screen that I was seeing is the problem with this. If you have one where it's stuck on night mode, as in you can see a black and white picture during the daytime, then I suspect that it's this module that's failed. And it does, you can hear a mechanical click in this when you put power to it. So there'll be something stuck in here. The actual lens is faulty. And now there is some screws on here, so we could open this up further and take a look. In fact, I might do that. Let's have a look. I suspect that the problem with this camera is something else. The problem with the CCD element or something else. So we're probably just going to end up replacing the whole camera unit. But for people who do have it stuck on black and white, we'll open this up and see if there's anything that we can service inside here. Okay, in here you just get a small screwdriver. Inside here I'm looking at an electromagnet there, and this actuates this filter. So at the moment it looks as though we have a clear filter, this one here, but on the other side I suspect that's our nighttime filter. So I wonder if I can mimic the action of the electromagnet here. Yeah, that's it there. So we have nighttime filter, and then the electromagnet fires and it switches the filter back. So this is the part you can hear click. When you put your hand over the front of the camera lens, you can hear a click inside and it switches to black and white mode, and the click is this arm moving across. So if it's stuck in black and white, or the picture's too bright, possibly this mechanical, it's always mechanical things that fail first, I would suspect that this is the point of failure. But that's quite interesting. So that means that this board is probably a failed board, and there's nothing user serviceable on there really. What we'll do is we'll turn these lights off, and I will connect it to my screen here, and we'll just take a look at what we're getting out of it. So let's put the lens over it again. be tricky to hold all this in place. I might need to put the screws back on. I think the focusing on this is because I haven't got it screwed together. So ignore the blurry image. But that looks as though it's working now, and if I cover up the light sensor on here, yeah, it's switched night mode. This has actually started working again now. Let's see if I can screw it together again, and we'll have another look. In fact, just before I do that, let's see if we can show you that that lens moving over. So let me just put these lights back on. Okay, so you can see that there. If we cover up the light sensor, do you see that switch? So that looks as though it's working, and the output is looks good. Like I said, it's a bit blurry, but let me screw it back together and see if we get a good image again. So I've just reassembled this, and as you can see, it's working fine now. The focus was just the assembly not quite screwed together properly. So now, if we switch back to night mode, again by covering up the sensor on here, hear a little click, and it's black and white. So I'm not 100% sure if it was the mechanical filter or not in this, because as you can see, if we switch it to night mode, it does still work. It's not completely white. Even outside in the daylight, I don't think it would be completely white, and this one was. So there may be some other issue with this one, but generally speaking, if you're having a problem with the with it being black and white or colour stuck in night mode, then I would suspect that the likely cause is the mechanical filter that's inside this housing that you've just seen. So you can open it up, take a look, see if there's anything obviously broken in there in the mechanics, or last resort is to just swap the whole camera element on the front of this. These aren't very expensive, these cameras, they're just cheap budget ones. But yeah, it's been interesting to see the inside of that. So I will fit this one, I think, back outside, and we'll take a look. So I've turned the power off to this camera now, and we're just going to refit it back into the housing. So what you need to do is put the camera through the infrared board, and then this gasket goes on the other side. This is so it makes a watertight seal up against the front. Actually, it's not for water sealant, it's dust, I assume, because this is all sealed anyway, so it'll be to prevent dust getting between the camera and the glass. So then what needs to happen is this slides back down the housing, and then we'll refit the hex nuts at the side to keep that in place. I'll do that off camera because it's a little bit tricky to get these back in. So I put the 3 hex nuts back in. They hold in the infrared array at the front, so that is now in place. When you put it together, make sure that you screw it in with the light sensor at the bottom. That's the way it comes. Now the next thing to be careful of is this CCTV board can spin around and be screwed into any one of 4 positions. So what you don't want is to put it upside down. When you put your camera back in place, the CCTV element is on its side or upside down. So the correct orientation is these 2 sockets at the bottom are together. So these are the 2 sockets that come from your housing wire, and just make sure that when you screw them together that these 2 are together there. The writing on this sticker for me is the right way around as well. This is the right orientation for the camera, but of course I don't know whether this sticker is could be stuck on another way, so I wouldn't go off this, but make sure that your 2 sockets are on the same side. And then it's just a question of rotating this board until the screw mountings line up with your hex nuts, and then there's 3 screws to put in there to hold it in place. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So I've just put this back together. Let's give it a test. Yeah, it looks like it's working. So it's in colour mode now, daytime mode. Let's just cover up the front, make it darker. In fact, let's do it there. So if we cover up the sensor at the bottom, there we are. Hear the little switch, hear the click, and the lens switching into place, and the picture has gone to black and white. And also the infrared lights on the front, you can see those glowing. Take that off. And it goes back to colour. Cover it over. Nighttime. Daytime. So it looks as though just the very action of taking this apart, checking that filter mechanism, putting it back together, looks as though it's fixed it, but I couldn't see anything obviously broken with it. Just one of those things, you take it apart, put it back together, and it works again. Okay, well, I'm going to take this one outside, put it back on the wall, make sure it still works, and hopefully that will last a while longer. So as you can see, this is now working again, and we can demonstrate the night vision here as well. So if we close this off, put our hand over it, you'll hear a little click inside. Now that's switched to black and white mode, which is the high sensitivity mode. If we take our hand off, we'll see it black and white, and then back to colour. So good, that's that one fixed.